Hello, welcome back to the channel. So power creep has become a pretty big point of contention, especially recently because of how strong a lot of the newer characters are. And while I do think that it is a problem, I think that people think it's a problem for the wrong reasons. Because I always see people complaining that the new characters are too strong, but I think that it's fine for the new characters to be strong, since one, it makes them more exciting, because let's be honest, a character just being kind of mediocre is just not that exciting. And two, it's just more fun to play strong characters, like, let's just be honest. It's fine for a new character to be strong, if the older characters still feel good to play. The problem is that they don't. And people will always say, like, if you invest enough in a character, you can make them work. And yes, you can. But you shouldn't have to have an insane build to make a character work. You should need a good build, but you should not need to have like god artifacts to make a character work, because it's just not worth the investment a lot of the time when you could just use like anyone else that takes like way less investment and it's just way easier to build. Maybe this is a hot take, I don't know, but like I do think that a lot of the newer characters just have way better kit design than the older characters, and that is one of the big reasons as to why a lot of the older ones are just so bad. It's because their kits are just not very good. Now, this isn't like every new character. Some of them I do think do have problems. I mean, one that comes to mind is like Agalaya and her energy problems that she can have and how like restrictive she can be. But most of them do just feel like way more like cohesive. As an example, a lot of the older characters' traces just kind of suck. But why does Sailey have this one? What is the point? It does nothing for her. Like, it's so bad. And Yanqing having this one, which makes no sense because you just don't want to get hit in the first place. So like, you're basically forced to run a shielder, and even then, you just won't care half the time. I don't know what it is in like the early days of the game that just had this like weird obsession with giving older characters defensive traces when it just doesn't do anything for them. And that's not even to say defensive traces are always bad. You know, on someone like Maide, his A4 makes a lot of sense, since you can't control him and he wants to like attack as much as possible. The main problem with a lot of the older traces is that they either feel like they should just be a part of their base kit, or just don't really help them do their job effectively at all. But even like besides just the traces, another problem is like having restrictions in their kit where I don't really think that they need them. I mean, Yanqing is the most obvious example of this, with his talent getting turned off if you get hit at all, which basically just forces you to run him with a shielder. But even besides him, someone like Sealy with Resurgence only triggering once. To be honest, I think that you could make Resurgence trigger every time she kills an enemy, but just make it so that the buff can't stack, and it would be fine, because I don't even think it would be that broken. Or even like Jing Liu with her whole like consuming ally HP thing really does feel more like an afterthought than anything, because a lot of the time it just doesn't really feel like it matters that much. Core problem with a lot of the older characters' kits is that they were designed to be just generically good, which was fine at the time, but doesn't really fit how much more like archetype and like team-centric the game is now, so they just don't really have a place. And the older characters that have been good do actually have something like unique about them. You know, Pella is one of the only characters that has like that big amount of AoE defense rate. Tingyun and Huoho are like one of the few characters that can give energy back. Jingyuan has gotten buffed like 5 times because of how much more support follow-up has. Herda was, basically just got buffed because pure fiction is a thing. These characters, have a place, which other characters just don't. I think it's a problem for like, someone like Silverwolf, because it's not like the Silverwolf's kit itself is bad. She just doesn't really fit into like any teams, or there's just characters that just do her job but just better. You could put her in like an Aggro team, but like with Jiaoqiu and Cypher, it just like there's just better options. But even like looking past the kit themselves, I do think another big problem is the design of the current content and just how much it favors the on-banner characters. Like specifically MOC, I do think that the other two modes are mostly fine as they are, but MOC really just feels super outdated and could honestly use a rework like what they did to Pure Fiction. Like the thing is, it's fine for it to be like somewhat favored towards the new character. I mean, all of these games do that. The problem is how much it is favored, to the point where like if you can't interact with the buffs at all, because you just don't have the characters for it, you probably just aren't beating it unless you have like an insane build. And like, yes, you should want to play into the buff, but the buff shouldn't matter so much to the point where if you don't have the characters, you just probably aren't beating it. Like, I'm not even saying that like it should be easy. I'm just saying that it should feel like the older characters are actually viable in it. Like, I really feel like MOC should work like the other two modes, where like each side has multiple buff options instead of like one overarching buff. And like you could say that maybe it would make all of the modes feel similar, but I'll be honest, I think I would rather that than what we have now, because what we have now is just a way worse system. Like maybe have like one of the buffs be towards the new character and then the rest be like for other archetypes so that players have more options. There is also like the whole HP thing, which I do think enemies are getting way too much HP now, because it does make sense for enemies to get more HP somewhat as the game gets older and as players get better builds. But the amount is going up is just way too much, because it just feels like an artificial way to make MOC harder, since the mechanics of it haven't really changed at all. And also, a lot of the enemies don't really have that many, like, insane mechanics, so it just kind of feels like really artificial. I don't know. Mostly needs like something, man, because what was the last thing we got? Like more floors, I think, and maybe more rewards, and that was kind of it. One last thing, which I do think is also kind of like feeding into this like power group problem, is the lack of 4 stars, because basically every new character we have gotten is a 5-star, which basically makes it feel like if you want to build a certain like archetype, you basically have to pull for like almost every character, because you don't really have any other options for alternative characters. And because of how much more like archetypal teams are, if you just don't have a certain character, some teams just feel so much worse. And like, yes, we did get someone like Remembrance MC who is very good, but like that is just not enough. And also you can only use one MC form at a time, so like that's just not that helpful anyway. And like people will say that they're only doing 5 stars just because of money, and while I do think that is part of the reason, I do think that the main reason is because they want every character to feel important and like a big, exciting thing. I mean, basically every character we have gotten for a while now has been important to the story in some way. And also, let's be honest, 5 stars are just way more exciting than 4 stars. They just are. And also, people want 4 stars until the character that they like is a 4 star, because I swear to God, every time we get a 4 star, people will complain that the character is a 4 star, so like there is no winning. But I'll be honest, if Hoyo wants to only do 5 stars, I think that there are 2 options that they could do. One, make more alternate forms, like Hunt, March, or Remembrance MC, so that you still have some sort of like free alternative option if you don't have certain 5 stars. Or 2, give more rewards so it's easier for people to get the 5 stars. Or just do both. Either one of those could work, depending on how they do it, you know? But like, they do need to do something, because the fact that the last 4-star we got was in 2.5 is insane. I really hope that the buffs next patch are good, because if they aren't, people are just gonna not have faith at all. Like I said in my Dot video, I don't really think that Kafka's buff is gonna do anything for Dot, but I do think that the other characters do have a chance, like Blade and Jing Liu and them. I don't know, at the end of the day, I do think that power creep is a problem. I just think that people think power creep is a problem for the wrong reasons. Like, don't get me wrong, the new characters are very strong, but like, if the older characters were better, I don't think that the new characters being strong would be a problem. But I don't know, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.